But in steps the one who has never done violence. In steps the one who has never murdered. In comes the one who has never violated the purity and love and perfection of God. We are in Genesis chapter 9 this morning. I invite you to turn there. In Genesis chapter 9, we are looking at the immediate world after the flood. The flood of Genesis 6, 7, and 8. Noah and his family. We studied that and looked at that in detail last week. You can go back and listen to last week and hear all about that. But we looked at the flood, and as we studied the flood, what we saw as kind of the big picture was that the whole world, the family and the family line of those that rejected God, and even the family line of those that were following God, even with individuals that believed in God, that whole family line, they, through marriage and through life and through culture, they compromised. And the whole world kind of became the same in a spiritual condition. There's a great compromise, and the world comes together generally not really understanding and following and loving God. And it's a world that doesn't really understand Him. There's some faithful mixed in through the generations, but most don't understand Him to the point where God looks at all of humanity and it says He's saddened, He's grieved by how they live and their lack of relationship with Him. He decides that He needs to end all of humanity. And so what He does, He brings the waters of chaos, the waters of pre-creation, the waters that were over everything. The waters come back through the flood, and the waters come of chaos and death and flood the world. And humanity is destroyed, and all life on land is destroyed except for one family. Through the faith of one man, Noah. Noah finds favor with God. God gives grace. He provides the grace to Noah to have relationship with Him. And Noah and his wife, and they have 3 sons and their wives, the 8 of them go on the ark, the boat that saves them through the water. And all the animals, a pair of every animal, and we know that story. And what we have is that now at the end of this, after all this time, the waters have gone down, the waters of chaos, and the waters of death that you cannot live in, that have destroyed life, have receded. Land has appeared. All the animals and Noah and his family leave. They worship, and there's a time of sacrifice and worship, thanking God for their salvation. And then we arrive in chapter 9, where we're here today. What now? God made all of humanity. He gave them the Garden of Eden. He made them in His image. He called them to be priests. He called them to be people to represent God, represent Him to the whole world, to live a life governing and ruling over the earth that was made. He called them to be beautiful, wonderful participants in His creation. They rejected Him, turned away so much towards evil, and left God so much that it was better to end that race, to end humanity and all life that was there. And He leaves one family. And where do we go now? What's He now? What we're going to read is that in a way, He does another creation. He recreates in kind of a way, but it's significantly different. And we'll look at that. And then with His new creation, He creates a relationship with them. Unlike He did with Adam and Eve in the first generations, He does something new here. He says, this is how we're going to live from now on. He makes a covenant. And we're going to study the idea of covenant and what is made with Noah and his family. And the covenant is the primary way God interacts with humanity from Noah's day forward, including us. We have any sense and any relationship with God because of a covenant, something He establishes with humanity and marks how we know God from the time of Noah until the time of the end. It marks how we live with God. And so we're going to look at that today, all here in chapter 9 of Genesis. So let's turn there. We're going to read the first 7 verses, Genesis chapter 9, verse 1 through 7, and look at that for a few minutes, and then we'll go to the next section of the chapter. Genesis chapter 9, verse 1, and God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. And you, be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth, and multiply in it. Genesis 9, 1-7. So what we have here, in a sense, is a new creation. The very first sentence tells us, oh, remember chapter 1. Remember Adam and Eve in the very beginning. He says, God bless them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. That's practically a word-for-word repetition of chapter 1 when he made male and female, Adam and Eve at the beginning. Multiply, be fruitful and multiply. He told that to all the animals, be fruitful and multiply and fill your space. To humanity, be fruitful and multiply. So he's recreating, and again, it makes sense just very practically. Humanity has been destroyed except for one family. There's a whole earth to live on and to fill, and he tells now this family, again of 8 people, Noah, his wife, the 3 sons and their wives. He tells them, now you need to go and do again what the first people did that have been wiped out. So you need to fill the earth. So be fruitful and multiply. So not only practical, but it reminds us again, oh, there's a new creation happening. So when we start thinking about new creation, we might be thinking, well, is it going to be like the first one? So what was the first creation about? It was man and woman and filling the earth with their descendants. It was all the animals filling the earth and the seas with their descendants. The first man and woman were given a charge, though, to subdue the earth and to have dominion over it, to rule over it. There was a language of rulership, of kingship, a language of royalty with the first family. They were to be the royalty over the earth, the king and queen, and to rule it. And the idea was that all the things God had made, all the animals and fish and birds and everything that He's made, and the plants and everything, was there as a space God made, a perfect space for humanity to live, and all the other things. And God said to humanity, now rule this place, govern it, take care of it, watch over it, protect it, increase its life. It was a very beautiful and empowering call in chapter 1. Hey, man and woman, here is everything you possibly need to live and to enjoy life and to be fully human. You have plants and animals, rule over them, keep them in order. You have the land, garden the land, take care of it. You have a holy space, this Temple of Eden, this Eden place. You have a holy space where we can have relationship. You humans, creature, and me, God, creator, we can have a relationship in this beautiful temple space. Guard what is holy, keep it beautiful and holy, and everything you possibly need. He says you have every green plant for food. You don't have to worry about eating a day in your life. You have authority over the animals. They will subdue and have dominion over them. The animals are no threat to you whatsoever. You have a relationship with me that protects you from and gives you all the knowledge you need. You want to know what's right or wrong? You want to know what's true and not true? Come to me. I will fill you with all the knowledge you need. Come to me and I will answer it. Don't seek it on your own. Don't eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But then in this garden, you also have the tree of life. Every day you can eat of the fruit to keep you alive. And not just alive physically, but alive. Live life to its fullest. Be everything. Have all that you need. God paints not just a beautiful picture of serenity and calmness, but the picture of Genesis 1 and 2 is fullness. And we all know that right in the back of our heads. Think life sometimes, we have moments when everything goes right for an afternoon or a day. And we're like, that's the best day ever. I had the best day. We've had moments like that. But for us, it's at best moments. Because the next day or the next hour, something goes wrong. Something breaks. The car doesn't work. Another bill shows up in the mail. Someone says something hurtful to you. You say something hurtful to them. Right? Stuff, it never lasts, that feeling and that time when everything is just right. It just doesn't last. Adam and Eve had all of that. It lasted. God made everything to last that way forever. But humanity said, nope, God, you may have done it this way, but we know better. We want to do it for ourselves. We want to define for ourselves what life's all about. That's essentially what Adam and Eve did in eating that fruit. And it's essentially what every other human being has always done. We want to figure it out for ourselves, God. Thanks, but you can take a seat now. We'll take it from here. That's kind of a lighthearted way to almost see it. But what that did was it led after generation after generation of that, what it led to was a world of violence, a world of hatred, a world of death, a world of darkness, which is what the world before the flood is described as. And God floods it to remove that darkness and that horribleness from the earth. And the waters come back and flood the earth. And now all of that's gone. And so he recreates a humanity, Noah and his family, and they are not like Adam and Eve in Eden. They're not like them. Even though they found favor with God, even though God gave them grace and kept them alive, they are still the people of the broken world. Adam and Eve were given Eden, a holy temple. Noah and his family are still outside of that. They're not back in Eden. God does not restore Eden. He doesn't remove the flaming sword and cherubim we read in chapter 2 or 3. He doesn't bring them back. They're still out in the exiled world. It in fact tells us right at the end of chapter 8 that we read last week, the intentions of the hearts of Noah and his family still have evil in them. Like, that's not been erased. And so while there's a new creation, it's not like Eden. It's not like chapter 1 and 2, because the humans here are still people of brokenness, people of selfishness, people who still have a tendency to say, no thank you, God. But they worship, they have a relationship with him, but that's still inside this seed of humanity. So, be fruitful and multiply, he says in verse 1 of chapter 9. But then he goes right to, and we see differences right away. Adam and Eve had a relationship with animals, where there was a relationship of wholeness and dominion. In verse 2, we read, the fear of you, humans, and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every bird, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. Now the relationship is not a participation in life, but there's fear and dread between humans and the rest of the created world. So there's a fear and a dread there. There is not relationship. There's still brokenness there. But humans are given, again, as humans are still in God's image, given that authority, and they were to still be able to dominate over all of them, and all the living creatures are given into their hand. Now we hear also that humans can eat everything. There's a lot of debate whether anyone ate meat before the flood. Because right here we read, I give every animal for food to you. It says earlier, I give you every green plant. Here it says, now I give every animal as food to you. So there's a lot of debate. Does that mean they never ate meat before? The definitive answer is, you don't know. As definitive as that can be. The language here does not necessitate that they never ate it before. It just tells us that now God particularly ordains this for humanity. God is now particularly saying, you can eat meat, and everything is open. You can eat all of it. Just like you can eat all the green things before, now you can eat all the meat. All it means is that God is ordaining this change in relationship, where now the animals can be seen in a much more holistic way, or a much deeper way, as consumable. Not just as food, but consumable as creatures, right? Use them to take care of you. You can use the animal kingdom to take care of humanity. It doesn't mean they didn't before. It just means in this new relationship, there's a different nuance to it. The participatory kind of community before the flood, that's gone. Now it's much more about practical and using and consuming. So, whether they ate meat or not before, you can go either way. If you want to argue they never ate meat, that's fine. I could see it going that way. If you want to argue, of course they did, I could see it that way. What I just want you to know is these verses don't necessitate one or the other. It may leads people to think different things. But what it necessitates is the relationship with the animal kingdom is different. It is now a consumable thing. The animal kingdom now serves you in a much different way than it did before. And that's their nature now. That's the relationship that we're having. So again, this is a new creation, but a very different. It's a kind of new. It's a different kind of creation. So then the next thing, the parts of it. So even though you eat them, now the next whole stage is you can eat these animals, but don't eat its blood. All right, so this is now the connection that God's making. Don't eat its blood. The blood is symbolically the life. You can actually translate the word, the lifeblood. The blood is its soul. Right? This idea of soul comes into this paragraph, where soul meaning not this invisible thing of you, but the soul just meaning that what makes you you, like your life, like who you, like your aliveness, your being aliveness, more than just your body. You can eat the body, but the blood represents that kind of thing that makes you a living thing. So animals have this too. It doesn't mean that animals have souls that get saved or not. It's not saying all that. It's saying, though, that what makes animals alive, more than just that they're pieces of meat, is they have life in them, soul, and they have this life-giving thing in them from God. And the blood represents that. God's saying, you don't have a right to that. You can eat their meat. You can have their body. You don't have a right to their life. You don't have a right to their soul, to what makes them alive. You don't have a right to that, humans. That's mine, God's saying. In animals and in humanity. So it goes on to say, don't eat them, don't consume the blood of the animals when you eat them for food. But it goes on to say, and man, humankind's life, you don't have a right to either. So let's continue on there, verse 5. For your lifeblood, human, for the lifeblood, the kind of that soul blood of humans, I will require a reckoning. From every beast I'll require it, and from man. So if your life is taken, humans, there's a reckoning for that. There's an accounting that happens for that. The idea of accounting is really a good word for reckoning here. It's not a punishment word. All right? This leads to, is capital punishment something the Bible supports? You can use this to talk about capital punishment. It ties to that. But the word is not really about punishment here. It's not the idea of this paragraph. The idea is that when a human life is taken, it has to be accounted for. It doesn't just go and it's not meaningless. It's not swept under the rug. It means that the human life is so valuable to God, it has to be recognized. And it has to be accounted for. It's got to be spoken for. God keeps account of it. Every one of our lives, he keeps account of. You're not meaningless. It doesn't just go away. You don't just become worm food and that's it. Like there's the whole idea that even when we die or our death just erases us. Like all of those kind of ideas which creep into other cultural things. It's just not. The Bible's saying that none of that's true. Like every life is a countable, significant thing that I've made, that I own, God says. I've made every life. And there will be an accounting for it, a reckoning. There will be consequences for a life lived and a life taken. So that's the idea here. There's great importance given to each human life. So, if you take a life, there's going to be a reckoning. We're going to figure that out. There's a reckoning for it. Again, not necessarily punishment, but then he goes on in verse 6, the idea of taking a life wrongly, there will be a direct, your life will be accountable. You will be accountable to that. Verse 6, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. And it's all tied to the image of God. Image meaning not just our physical bodies looking like him, but image meaning reflection. Think of a mirror. When you look in a mirror, you see your image, right? The thing in the mirror is you, not wholly you, but it looks just like you, right? It is you. If you look at a picture, if I showed you a picture of somebody, and I said, who is that? You say, well, that is John. That is him. You know it's not actually him, it's his image. But you call it the guy you see, right? That's him. It's not somebody else. An image doesn't show you a different thing. An image shows you the thing it's an image of. So we are made in the image of God. We are not God. Sorry to burst your bubble. You are not God. But when creation looks at you, they see God. Or at least they're supposed to. Right? We're made in his image. So, because of that, that's why life matters so much. And there's an accountability for life here. Now, a very interesting idea that happens here is there's a protection element. Right? If someone takes a life, that his life will be accounted for. There's a protection image here. God is protecting us from killing each other. Which is he has to tell the first family after the flood, hey, just so you don't all kill each other, there's going to be an accounting if you do. They need to know that. Now, Noah and his wife, they've been stuck on a boat for 100 days, 300 days together. So, I don't know. Rebecca might want to take mine too after 300 days of not getting away from me. So I get it. But God's saying this. So there's built into this humanity. Again, it's not Adam and Eve. It's a humanity that's in exile, that has wickedness in their heart. And God says, look, this is part of you now. The whole world was flooded because of violence and murder. This is part of you, but I'm providing a protection. Don't decide to be judge and jury. Don't take that life. Yours will be, I'm going to count yours in the place of that life then. We already saw it with Cain. Right? When Cain killed his brother Abel, there was a little protection. Cain's like, oh no, I'm just going to kill me. And God said, no, someone kills you, Cain, 7 times judgment on them. So God's already built the idea in that we don't have a right to wrongfully or just in a vengeance sense take life, or because I was wronged, I can take your life. That's not biblical. There's no vigilante vengeance kind of thing. Even if you want to talk about capital punishment and whether an authority has a right to do that as a form of societal good to punish, that's a separate conversation we can have, and it's interesting. But that's really not what this is about. This is saying, look, so if someone hurts you, you can't just go hurt them. Someone killed someone you love, you don't have a right to just go kill them. You just can't kill that way. God provides protection for that. God mandates other ways to deal with justice. God is just. Justice is in other places, and he's talked about that a lot. But here he's saying part of his justice is when life is taken wrongly. Right? There's an accounting for that. You will be accountable to God. Your life will be for what you've done. So it's an interesting sense of accountability in life and blood, all connected here. We see a little nugget right here. The blood is the life of someone. When a life is taken, when murdered, a life will be given for that, right? By man, your blood is shed, then your blood will be shed by another man. There's this sense of accountability of one life for another, of blood being shed, which is the life force of a life. We move into the day of Moses, and we have humans sinning and their life being forfeit to death in relationship to God because of sin. And God says, okay, well, I will take the blood of animals. And animals give their life and their blood. The blood of the animals is poured out on the altars and the whole Old Testament temple stuff. And the blood of animals covers the sin of humans who are accountable to give their lives to God. Their lives are spared because an animal's lifeblood is given. See that how God takes, there's an accountability. The lifeblood of an animal must be taken, or else my life is taken, but I can be spared if the animal lifeblood is taken. And of course, the entire sacrificial system built on this new world understanding of after the flood leads, of course, right to Jesus. And my life should be forfeit. Based on my relationship with God, my sin against him, my ignoring him, my compromise, on so many things. As I, like all the people before Noah, have rejected God and born in a place of rejection of God. So my life should be taken. Why am I alive now? And even more, why will I be alive forever? Not because God just says, oh, that's okay, I like you, Scott. It's because lifeblood was given so I can live forever. That's the only way it works. Lifeblood must be given for lifeblood taken. So, of course, Jesus walks up. The only one. And Jesus makes so much sense understanding even this post-flood idea, which carries to Moses, which carries to him. God has built a world, and in this world there is still the evil and darkness and rejection and murder and violence against God and against others. And God says, but when you live that way, that will cause more death. Your killing, your vengeance, your hatred of God, that world of violence will cause more violence and violence done to you. You live that way, it will be done to you. I have lived that way of violence against God, and so violence from God must come to me. It is only just, it is only right that violence be done to me from God because I have initiated violence against God. You see the connection? You see what's happening? It's what's happening to Noah. He says to Noah, look, you kill someone, you go and murder, you go and take this vengeance, you will be accountable for it. I have done violence against God. All of us have done violence against God. And we are accountable for that. And our lives should have violence done against them. But in steps the one who has never done violence. In steps the one who has never murdered. In comes the one who has never violated the purity and love and perfection of God. And he steps in, and the violence that I ought to receive by righteousness and justice, he bears. He holds upon his shoulders all the violence due to me. Therefore, his lifeblood is taken, and I can live. You see, the cross is about that. The cross goes all the way back to the post-flood days. The cross goes all the way back to dealing with the truth that we have rejected God. Dealing with the truth that we have sought chaos instead of life. Dealing with the truth that we want our own way instead of God's. From Noah's day forward. And so it's all built right there in those little verses. It's all born, the seed of it is there, which continues through the Moses and the law, which continues through the prophets, which reaches Jesus. So we see that there. So I really want you to understand how this all ties together. It's not just talking about you can eat animals, but like pour the blood out. That's the practicality of it, but it's about so much more. It's about so much more. God makes life. God makes life. It's his. When we take it, we give up ours. Jesus came and gave up his so that we wouldn't have to give up ours and we could live forever. That's the formula. That's justice. That's the way the world has been made. So beautiful. So that establishes humanity. So that's the new establishment of humanity. But now that humanity, as in general, through Noah and his family, that's now the way humanity will work. The animal kingdom is a consumable service to you. You can have them, but you cannot have their life. You cannot take other humans' lives. Like, that's the way the world's going to work now. But now that the world's going to work that way, God says, I want to reestablish a relationship. Adam and Eve, he had a relationship. He talked to them, gave them life, talked to them, told them all that it was going to be. Now that all humanity is gone, there's this new family, God says, I want to reestablish what our relationship is. How are we going to do this life together? How are we going to go forward? What's it going to be like? And he makes a covenant. So let's read verse 8 to 17 to the end. Chapter 9, Genesis, verse 8. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. This whole paragraph, God is saying, I'm establishing a covenant with you. Now, understanding a covenant, when we hear the word covenant, we have other words that we might mix with it or make synonyms, and they're not quite. The biggest one is contract. Covenant, we think contract. And a contract establishes the relationship parameters, right? That's what a contract does. If you have a contract for work with an employer, the employer says, I will pay you this money, and you will do this job, right? That's our relationship. You do this work, and I will pay you this money. That's our contract. And you could break the contract, right? And when you break it, then the work just stops. You stop working, they stop paying. And you go back to what you were before. You go back to not having any relationship once the contract's broken. A contract is temporally about right now, however long the right now lasts. This defines our relationship for now. And so that's what a contract is, but when a contract ends, the relationship ends. Right? So that's a contract. Sometimes we think of a covenant, it includes contract, but it's more than that. Another thing we think of when we hear the word covenant, sometimes we think promise. A covenant is a promise we make that we're going to achieve this end. We're going to work towards this goal. It's a promise that we're going to reach this new status. And I promise you and you promise me, and we move forward to fulfill the promise. And that's, we think with covenant, we think of promise. And there's a promise, there's a future part to it, but the future part is not just something we look forward to like a promise. The covenant has a lot of meaning about what's happening right now, and there's also consequences if that future is not fulfilled. And so covenant is like a promise, but much more than a promise. So we think of promise, we think of contract. Those words are related, but not the same word, and not meaning the whole thing. Really, the thing that in our lives, in our culture, that is most likely to understand it is marriage. And it's a sad thing that a lot of places and secular places are making marriage more like a contract. It establishes a relationship. How are we going to do life together? And so we establish that in the marriage. We say, well, we're going to love and honor one another, right? So it's kind of the part of that vow. We'll love and honor one another. That's the relationship. Love and honor back and forth. And even when life gets crazy, so in sickness and in health, when we have a lot, we don't, and richer and for poorer, right? So we establish that we will have a love and honoring relationship while all these things are happening, whether they're good or bad, and the ups and downs of life, we'll have this relationship. And that's contract language. This tells me how I'm going to live with my spouse, how we're going to do life together. We will love and honor in the midst of the ups and downs of life. That's a contract language. It establishes who we are to each other. But if marriage is only a contract, then it can come to an end, and when it does, everyone just goes back to the way they were before. And we kind of live that way in our secular world, right? Divorce means you just end the marriage, and then you're just two single people just doing life again, however you did before, however you want to, separate from each other. And we've made marriage just a contract. But for another time to talk about it, but I would implore you to really think of when that relationship is divorced, it's not like going back. It's not like there wasn't anything there. The Bible talks about a unity and a oneness that happens, that even if contractually the marriage has come to an end legally, there's a oneness and a togetherness that at best is torn and broken, at best. And it could even be worse than that. So anyway, to make marriage only a contract, I think denies what's actually happening. But it also has a promise to it. We say we're going to live this way in love and honor, through good times and bad, till death do us part. So that's a promise we make. Right? We're going to have a relationship with a goal, with kind of an end in mind, and the end is that it will stay in relationship till we die. So that's the end. There's a promise that we'll have love and honor now in good and bad, and we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll keep having this relationship. We promise to keep it until life is gone, and then we can't keep it because we died. So there's a promise to it. But again, if it's just a promise is kind of built on whims and hopes, and there's not much meat to it, right? There's not much to hold you to it. So a promise is a beautiful thing, but a promise without consequence, a promise without reality of accounting, if the promise is broken, is just nice words and nice ideas. So again, in our secular thinking, if it's just a contract, well, we just break it and go on to life however it was before. If it's just a promise, then we do it, and if we don't reach it, oh, well, we tried, that was nice. Like if it's just a contract, it's weak marriage. If it's just a promise, it's a weak marriage. But marriage, biblically, is supposed to be a covenant. What a covenant is, it maintains the status of a relationship until the promise is fulfilled. And if the promise is not fulfilled, there are consequences for unfulfilling the promise the contract was set up for. We create a contract, how are we going to live together, with a promise that this relationship will last till the goal is achieved. And if the relationships don't hold or the goal is not achieved, there are consequences and an accounting for that. A covenant has real teeth to it. Not just we just break and go back, or even if we say, well, you have to give some money for it or something. But if contracts and promises, you can still kind of have a clean break. You fix whatever, you make things even, and you move on. That's not a covenant. There is no clean break in moving on. A covenant is not fulfilled. There are actual, real consequences that change life forever. That's what a covenant is. So, covenant between humans is like that, and it's hard to enforce sometimes. But biblical covenants have all those pieces to it. And the biblical covenant is built on even another idea, which is not just two parties, but two unequal parties. Right? You have a more powerful party and a less powerful. Kind of the language of ancient times is you have a sovereign and a vassal. Right? Like you have a sovereign king, the big boy, and then you have these little vassal kingdoms, the guys that were weaker. And the sovereign king comes in and he says, okay, look, let's make a covenant. We're going to establish how your kingdom and my kingdom get along. And we're going to get along this way. You're going to give me tithes or tributes and an army, and we're going to do these things, and I'll protect you from anyone else beating you up. We'll have this covenant, and it'll last as long as our kingdoms last. And if you break it, the sovereign says, if this covenant's broken, and there's consequences, if you break our kingdom covenant, then I will send my army in and wipe you out. You, vassal nation, will no longer exist if you break this covenant. And that language of consequence is crucial to covenant, especially between a sovereign and a vassal. Now think of God and us. Which one's the sovereign? Which one's the vassal? Right? Don't get that one wrong. God is powerful, all-powerful, and we are not. The sovereign, all-powerful God makes a covenant with the weaker us. And he said, this is how we're going to live now. We're going to do life this way. This is how we're going to be. And we're going to be until the promise, until our goal is achieved. And if it's broken, vassal, if it's broken, you're wiped out. That's the normal way that we should expect this to work. The amazing biblical truth, the gospel at the heart of every covenant, is that God holds himself accountable for us breaking the covenant. When the covenant is inevitably broken by us, we are not punished and wiped out. But God accounts for that breaking to himself. So Abraham is the next covenant. We don't have time to that, but there's a scene where the vassal, the weaker one, is supposed to walk through some dead animals and say, hey, look, if I break it, I'll be as dead as these animals I'm walking through. But in the Abrahamic covenant, God walks through the dead animals. He said, look, if this breaks, I will take on the death, even though you, vassal, broke it. You, Abraham, break it. And of course, back to Jesus, like we already taught. We have broken the covenant, and Jesus, God the Son, has taken the punishment. So that picture of covenant is all through the pages of this. There are 6 major covenants in the Old Testament, this being the first one. But we see the covenant here, we don't have a lot of language to it, but the covenant is, God says, I will no longer destroy the earth with flood. not just meaning not water. I will not let chaos come. I will not go back to pre-creation existence where chaos waters of death and flood come over and destroy all life again. I will no longer do that. I will not let chaos come back and destroy all things again. I will not let pre-creation kind of world of craziness come back. I will not let that darkness come back. I will not let that non-existent chaos state ever come back over my earth again and destroy all of life. And really our part, Noah's part, is just to keep living. It's not even really, there's not even a worship aspect here. Although I do believe that's implied. Noah has already done acts of worship. It's implied to recognize God, the Creator, who is the one providing life. A relationship of recognizing God as God is implied here, but it's not even stated specifically. Noah's not even given any stipulations. Just to keep on living under God's umbrella of the sovereign, and God will not bring that about again. And the sign of that, the promise is the rainbow in the sky, and it's all tied, of course, to the flood. When we see clouds, imagine Noah and the first couple generations. You see a big storm brewing. I mean, if you have been within the lifetime or a couple generations of a worldwide chaotic flood, a storm brewing would be the scariest thing you could see. So you see the clouds, you see the rain in the clouds, and then you see the rainbow, which is physically, right? Rainbow, the refraction of light and all that through rain, through water. So God uses the physical realities of what light and water are, and the rainbow that is seen is the promise that this rain will not bring about the chaos waters of destruction. It's a promise tied directly to what happened, to what they see, but it is a sign that God will not bring chaos back. Could, maybe has a right to, but won't. He will preserve life. He will preserve the status of relationship where he makes relationship and finds favor with people. And if the covenant is broken, right, if something goes wrong and this were to come back, God himself is the one who is the author of it and the recipient of the accounting. God puts on himself, the covenant will stay because God will stay. The covenant will remain because God will remain. And that truth with this one we can't break it. We can't bring the flood about. In this first one, we see the seed of covenant in that Noah can't even break it. He can't make the flood happen. Only God can. So God says with this covenant, I will establish the covenant and I will maintain the covenant. And brothers and sisters, that promise goes through to every covenant going forward. And that's the only reason why we have hope. With Abraham, he makes a covenant. God says, I establish it and I will maintain it. I walk through the dead animals. Moses, he gives a law, and God says, I will maintain my people. And then we hear in the prophets, there's a new covenant coming. God's going to do something new. The Holy Spirit in your heart, the words of God, the truth, the law written on your heart, like God's going to do this new covenant thing. And Jesus comes along and says, whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, right, whenever you commemorate and remember that I died, you are remembering the new covenant in my blood. Jesus used the exact same language with the Lord's Supper. The covenant is the promise that we will have relationship with God. We will be maintained in his favor until the end when we will pass through judgment and live forever with him. That's the promise. The contract is favor and grace. The promise at the end is eternal life. And the consequences for breaking it, for breaking the relationship of not obeying and not believing, is that death must happen. The lifeblood must be given. Jesus says, my lifeblood was given. I established the covenant and I maintain it. Because we couldn't. That's the story of every covenant. God maintains it because we can't. God's love, his sovereignty, his perfection, his joy, his power is all wrapped up in that idea from Noah through Jesus. That he establishes relationship with us and does not leave us alone. He establishes how we relate. And then even when we go against it, even when we break it, even when we're ignorant, even when we're willful and we just don't relate to God the way that works, he will maintain the relationship and pay the consequence for the breaking of it. The cross, communion table, our lives now are all tied to the fact we live and breathe because God is maintaining a relationship with us. Not because we are, because He is. All praise and glory to God that He will not let us destroy it. He keeps us with Him forever. Jesus' last words, and behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Not because we stick with Him, because He sticks with us. Pray with me. Lord, you are powerful and mighty and true. You are righteous and good. Thank you for your word. Thank you for your truth, that you have made our relationship with us, and you will keep it no matter what we do. Lord, give us faith and obedience, Lord, to enjoy the relationship and to live in it every day. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you. In your holy, awesome, righteous, sovereign name. Amen.